Riddle here. Today we're going to learn how to make a grapevine basket, specifically something we call a wall pocket. Grapevine grows very tenaciously, especially in the Midwest and the eastern parts of our country. There's a wild grapevine that actually is terrible for the trees. It grows up into them in mass and strangles them out. So a lot of people are happy to get it off their property. It does produce a very small grape that's very sour, which is edible. You could probably make some good medicine from it or some hooch, but mostly it just feeds the birds. And many people are more than happy to get it off their property. Now, I'm in Northern California right now, and I actually have a grape arbor, and the leaves have just finished their cycle. They've dropped off because it's winter here. It's January 2022. Woohoo! And so I'm going to cut back these grapevines and make a basket out of what other people would throw away. So we're going to start with a length of medium vine. The thickness of your vine does matter because you're going to want to use a thicker vine, your thickest vine, to make the frame of your basket. And you're going to use the thinner vine to fill in to weave. And the type of weave we're going to use is called a random weave. It's not your traditional super tight basket weave. So what we have here right now is where, if you have a special place you're going to hang your wall pocket, because this basket is like designed like a half basket where it's going to hang on the wall flush, and then we're going to have a half of a pocket coming out the front that you're going to be able to plant up with flowers. So decide if you're making it for a gift for someone or for yourself, where or what size I want my wall pocket. We're going to do our wall pocket about 18 to 20 inches is a nice size, very manageable. So you're going to form your ring, and as you can tell, I'm using both my hands. I'm holding on to both places on the vine on this side and using my favored hand to work the vine. I'm going to pull it underneath my ring over the top, and then I'm going to lock it in like so. Now, if you don't have enough vine to do this, it's okay. As long as it locks in one really good time and you have a good hold on it here, then you're going to turn your wreath and pull your vine through, following the same steps. And the trick is, people do this too loosely. You want it to lock in nice and tight, so don't be extending it too far around the ring. Keep it tight close to the ring. Again, we're going to go over our ring and through the middle. Pull it all the way through, nice and tight. And at this point, you can decide like how thick of a handle do you want. The handle is important, and it's important to use thicker vine because it's the structure, it's the supporting mechanism for your basket, and your basket's going to last a lot longer with watering and weather if you have a nice substantial handle or foundation. Again, taking it, feeding it through over the top and through the center of my ring. And as you get to you can see I've got my second level going already, and it almost braids and catches. It braids and catches into the grooves, and this is where you're starting to get, real strength in your frame or handle. If I was going to do a full-size grapevine basket, it's the exact same method, but I would build it off from both sides instead of just the front. Over and under, locking, and this is the exact same method that you use to make a simple grapevine wreath also. Now, I'm showing off today. I should have a pair of clippers with me, hand clippers. I forgot to grab them, so we're going to do a no tools, which is kind of cool if you're in a survivalist situation, you had to make a basket. So here's the beginning of our wreath or basket. Take some seconds. Okay, now excuse me a second. I need to cut another length of vine from my arbor. This vine is so nice. It's really young and pliable. Yet you have to be careful. People say, do you have to soak grapevine? And I used to mess with people when I used to do demonstrations at the county fair in Ohio. And I'd say, yes, you have to soak it in Suave conditioner. I was such a mean kid. But basically, I thought they were trying to steal my business. And they, instead of buying a basket, just buy a damn basket. You're not going to make a damn basket. That was my mentality back then. So I would say crappy things like that to people. And I now, in retrospect, think I can imagine them going home and buying a couple bottles of Suave hair conditioner and putting it in a big bucket and soaking their dead grapevine in it, just to find out that the grapevine would break apart. So no, you don't have to soak grapevine, but grapevine does have to be alive. And how you tell if it's alive is when you cut the stem. Can't really see that. The inside will be a whitish green color. And also when you bend it, it's going to bend without snapping. And it can, you know, the easiest time to make grapevine baskets is after all the leaves drop off in the fall and the winter months, because you don't have all the leaves and bugs to deal with. And you have to be really careful because poison ivy grows right next to the vine. And you don't want to get poison ivy if you're allergic to it. It's horrible. I used to get it constantly. Also, you have to be really careful because sometimes the grapevine grows really high up into the forest canopy, up into the trees, which makes a nest for raccoons and squirrels. And there's been a couple times that I literally saw my life flash before me as I saw this giant raccoon, after pulling on the vine, dropping from about 100 feet, headed right for me. So be careful of not to pull any angry raccoons down on your head. All right, we're gonna get to the next part of our basket here. So we're gonna have to do two things here in regards to building our frame and weaving. One, we're going to make a straight bar right across the back of our frame. This is gonna be the back of our basket. So I'm going to take this. Now you can cheat a little bit if you're a beginner, and you can use some steel wire and a pair of pliers to secure the grapevine, or a nail gun. Be careful of the nail gun, it can be really dangerous. But the thing is, if you use wire, the grapevine will shrink and you have to keep tightening the wire. So it makes more maintenance, but it will help in the beginning if you're not used to using both your hands. So I'm feeding it through the center of my ring, pulling it right across here. As simple as that. Nice deep, make it deep. Don't put your, at least center to 3/4 of the way up. You want a nice deep basket so you can plant lots of flowers into it, okay? Then, look what happens. I can bring this straight around to meet this side to make my front, to make my actual pocket. So gently, I'm bending this all the way around to the front, making a nice bowed shape. And then you have to hold on to it on the corner with the frame, and we're gonna do the same thing that we did when we made our wreath or our frame, our handle, and that is pull it through the ring and then secure it. Oh no, it snapped, it broke on me. Maybe I can still hold on to it. Yeah, it's gonna barely hold on, but it's gonna hold on. This happens. You just have to be patient. And the beautiful thing about weaving of any kind and craft, if it's a really good craft, is it teaches you patience. There's beautiful life lessons in regards to mobile meditation, I call it. I'm not one to sit still for very long, but when I'm doing something like this, I find some of my best thoughts come to me and I'm at the most peace. So we have our bowed front, and what I'm gonna do, instead of taking it all the way around like we did the last time on our frame, I'm gonna take it into the piece we have bumping out the front, our lip, the lip of the front of our basket. So I'm gonna weave it into that to start connecting our lip onto our frame, because the lip is actually part of the frame of the wall pocket. You will see in a minute. Don't get frustrated. It's your first time. You know, even at my age, I'm still caught up in this weird idea of perfectionism. And often, I'm very cruel to myself with always trying to be a little too perfect. And often, we miss out on life because we're afraid to try new things because we're not automatically perfect at them. But you know, that's not how life works. You have to become the master of things slowly, and you have to earn those things. Unlike what we see in culture today, where instead of having character, people are characters. And it's a slippery slope, and it's also a trap of the ego. Okay, so that snapped. So now we have the lip of our basket, and it is doubled, and we've got a nice shape to our frame here. I have a little piece left over because it broke, so I am going to reinforce that one more time, and I'm going to do that by taking my broken corner, tucking it well into a hole in my frame, and then following the usual weaving technique of bringing it around my frame. So sometimes a piece just isn't any good. That's kind of a life lesson, like I said. What you learn in the garden and doing things, you know, how many times does a piece have to break? Or does a person have to fail you? Or do you have to do something that just doesn't work before you realize you need a new piece? So this piece is too weak to make my frame with, because I told you need a nice thick piece, but this piece will still be okay for weaving. So I'm gonna take this thin piece that keeps breaking, instead of frustrating myself and making a weak frame, and I'm gonna set it to the side, and I'm gonna get my next piece to keep building my frame off of, instead of driving myself crazy. Okay, that looks like a really good piece. Grapevine's pretty amazing, and it's extremely renewable too. I like that about all grapevine, is that you cut it all the way back and it grows. So I never had to guilt about taking it from the forest. And I used to actually remember and make maps, and I would run it in cycles, because I would need different thicknesses of vine to make different parts of the baskets, animal shapes, snowmen. It was a really cool business for me back in the Midwest. It's interesting, in California though, people aren't really into crafts. You'd be surprised. You would think that everyone had like beautiful homes full of beautiful things. But I think because our weather is so good that people spend so much time outside, which is great, because you should see how healthy people here, especially older people. You know, they're 70, 80 out on bikes, take it on the mountains. I'm not talking about flat, just little flat like around a pond or something. And so Californians, because they don't spend a lot of time inside, I find it's a lot more difficult to sell them things to make their nest prettier, for lack of better words. But back in Ohio, this was a full-time job for me, and it was a beautiful life because it kept me in the woods all the time, and it also bought me a lot of time to spend with friends and family when I wanted to, instead of being chained to a regular 9-to-5 job all the time. And you know, I had one of those childhoods, like a lot of people did, that was far less from perfect, and I realized I needed to reclaim the 20 years I lost as a child and do some alone time and some healing. And so the Grapevine business, the basket weaving, really gave me that opportunity to spend a lot of time alone in nature, rethinking and re-feeling a lot of garbage that needed to be healed and needed to go. And the other thing I loved about the craft business is I would take advantage of the holidays. Mother's Day was a big day because I'd make tons of baskets and plant them with flowers, and then just, you know, blow it out one weekend. And Christmas, huge. Fall was huge. And then I could take all that money and just relax for a while. Just relax and spend quality time doing a bunch of nothing instead of hustle, 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 hustle. Yeah, the whole purpose of my business was not to get rich, that's for sure. It was just to have the luxury of time. So if you're interested in starting a grapevine business, my suggestion to you is first perfect your methodologies and see what people are buying and see how much they're willing to spend. In the latter part of the years that I was running my grapevine business, I had become a one-man factory and learned to mechanize my weaving with nail guns and what have you, because I was actually selling to garden centers wholesale. So I was only getting $11 for a basket wholesale. But, you know, if I could make 3 to 6 baskets an hour, that was good money back then, really good money. I'd say the quality of the basket wasn't as great, but that's okay, because it was, you know, they were doing volume, and they kind of wanted the baskets to not last forever, because then the people would have to come up and buy another one the next year, which is basically the whole business model for Chinese imports. If you know what I mean. It's like a shame that we buy or we put up with the quality of some of these Chinese imports. It's literally, I feel, a crime to the planet. And people are changing their minds now. You know, now people, I think, are looking for something that lasts, something quality. So hopefully that's going to keep moving forward, go back to the old ways, that you spend more money on something very high quality and have it a lifetime. So you can see I'm still working on my frame. Here it is from the side. And I'm just bringing my grapevine from the bottom. I've woven it around the frame, and I'm coming outward and around to the top of the lip of my basket. I'm holding it with my left hand, both the vine and the lip of my basket. And now I'm going to pull the vine through. And again, just following the same principles of coming around the lip of my basket. Now this is where the weaving and the framework actually starts. I'm going to explain this the best I can. You see, sorry, this is very difficult to see. You see how I have my first piece here forming the bow or the front of my basket. Next, the next piece I'm bringing around the lip, and I'm going to go over the top of this piece, because this is creating the structure that we're going to have a nice round shape to the front of our wall pocket. So I'm pulling it over, keeping it really tightly locked in here, And then look, it's gonna go over that piece from the front, which is starting to make our wall pocket shape. So here I am, back down at the bottom or the base of my basket. And again, I'm gonna go what? I'm gonna go over and under, and I'm gonna lock it in nice and tight into my frame. And then the same idea, but a different area. So here's my piece of vine coming from the bottom, and this time I'm gonna cross over my basket in the front this way. Because the idea of the random weave is that it's random and you want to go to different spaces and fill in as much space as quickly as possible. And I will show you why that's important. So this is where I'm at right now, coming from the bottom, going over this brace that I made and back up to the lip of the basket where I'm going to, I have two choices. I can go around the lip of my basket, or I can go back up into my handle and create an additional strength or framing, nice thick framing up into my handle. Now, how do you make that choice? It's gonna look cool, that's for sure. It's gonna give it more of a design. So that's, see where it went from the lip of the basket back up into the handle. And it's also gonna make it stronger so you can put more stuff in it. Oh, do you hear that? That's a snap. Oh, that's two snaps. It's okay. It didn't snap off clean, so we're just gonna let it. We're just gonna be gentle with it, and we're gonna go over those areas. If I had a pair of clippers, I'd clip this off and then take my next piece of vine and reinforce that so it doesn't fall apart. The other option is you can pull, you can see where it's trying to holding on by a piece of skin here. You can pull this back and just ground it into deep into your frame, like how we start at different points. And you know what, I think that might be a better idea right now. So see, I'm pulling this off, and I'm just gonna take this and push it really hard and down into my frame, and look, it's perfect now. Perfect, no problems. We still have this little piece though wandering over here, but we're gonna take a piece and go over that to push that down. Now the whole idea of weaving is really simple. What weaving is, after we get our frame going here, but we're already going into this basic principle, so I should explain it to you, is two forces going in opposite directions against a neutral force, a neutral spot. So here is my initial piece of grapevine. My goal is to get a vine pushing from this side and a vine pushing from the other side, and that makes strength. So when you weave, your goal is to create as many spaces that you have those two opposing forces going against a neutral point, and that's what weaving is. I'll show you how our progress is so far. Amazing, right? Just blah, blah, blah. I think I'm gonna start working on my back a little bit because we have nothing woven in the back here except for the frame, and I don't want to get too far behind there. So I'm gonna try to cut down another piece of grapevine without knocking the camera down again. I'm always amazed at the expertise and foresight of a lot of YouTubers, how they set things up so nicely. And in regards to lighting and editing, I have been really lazy. I admit, everybody, I've been really lazy with not learning how to edit my videos. But a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago, about 7-10 years ago, I started feeling really, really strange. And I take very good care of myself, and it didn't make a lot of sense. But I was tired for no reason at all, and I was getting more tired, and my thoughts. I was having trouble with my, they say, cognitive abilities, cognitive issues. And some days were so bad I couldn't string a sentence together very well. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor after specialist. They're giving me drugs for stuff they didn't even know what they were giving me for. You know, it's the whole, if you haven't seen it yet, it's just like the Oxycontin thing, sadly. And then last year I wound up in the emergency room 4 days in a row. And at the end of the 4th day when I went home, I went to brush my teeth and I realized when I went to spit the water off that I had lost half the use of my face. I had Bell's palsy. So there's all these really, you know, go back to the hospital. The doctor's like, yuck, I don't know. And you have to understand, we live in like one of the wealthiest, most high-tech communities in the nation. And this is the quality of healthcare here. And about, like I said, it's about 7 months ago, my spouse came home from volleyball and said, did they test you for blah, blah? And I was like, well, you'd think they would have. I was at the chronic fatigue clinic at Stanford, you know, the supposed Cadillac of research hospitals. And called the doctor, sure enough they hadn't. And it turned out that I had Lyme disease. And I had it bad. I had it so bad, like I couldn't even lift a cup of coffee. I couldn't sleep at night because the joint pain was so horrific. I couldn't bend my arms in different directions. And it gotten in my brain really bad. And it probably had it, you know, as I said, I was making baskets in Ohio full of ticks and everything on the East Coast. So I probably conservatively had it for a decade or more. And so I am just healing from that. I'm just coming back from that. And the reason I'm telling you all this is if you hunt or you spend any time in the woods, you hike, and you start feeling a little off, like demand a test. If you've been bitten by ticks, just go get a test. It's a fallacy that you have to have the red ring around, because that's what I thought. I never got the red ring. I've pulled lots of ticks off, endless ticks off myself over the years. But it really has set back my life dramatically. And so that's why my excuse that I haven't learned to edit my videos and do better quality YouTube, because some days it's just getting through the day more often than not. There's no real treatment for the Lyme disease, and there are absolutely no treatments to manage the symptoms. And most of the medical community just wants to ignore us. And that has taken me to some pretty dark places, but also some very empowering places. So I'm working on my back now, the back of my wall pocket. I dug my vine in my frame. I'm bringing it around, and then the same principle. Now I'm working with a really long piece, which for beginners is probably not a good idea. You probably want to work with a piece of vine that's no more than 4 feet long when you're starting out. It's going to slow you down a little bit, but that's okay, because you're going to be far less frustrated. So again, I'm pulling my vine up to the back where my frame, I put that straight piece across in the back, and I'm going to go over that. Actually, for learning purposes, I'm going to snap this off right now. Bare hands. Going to go over that, and then back under it. The other thing about weaving is it's really interesting. Oh, I totally missed it. It teaches you about when and how to apply force. Because if you're too rough with the grapevine, it snaps. If you're too weak with the grapevine, you're not going to get a nice tight weave. So again, there's these weird lessons that come with weaving that you could also apply to life, if you know what I mean. So see that nice loopy I created just now? That's beautiful. I'm going to take this and I'm going to continue it going to the front of my basket. Okay, here's a funny one. We're gonna take it back this way, I think. And I'm gonna bring it over the opposite corner that I did the last time, because we have this little beautiful bracing here, and so I want to follow the same design on the opposite side. So I'm gonna come back down. So here's my opportunity. See this piece of vine right here? It has a piece pushing from the top here, and it has a piece pushing from the top here. So what do we need to do? We need to get that opposing force going, so we're actually weaving and not just rolling grapevine over and over in the same places. So I'm going to bring my piece of vine underneath that, and right away you can feel the strength. You can feel it pushing out. So now we're actually getting a weave going. See this? So pushing from the top, now we have something pushing from underneath. Over here, this piece right here, we had two pieces pushing from the top, from underneath. Now we have a piece pushing from the top. So it's the opposite of this one. So we are actually starting to create strength in our weave. I'm bringing it back down to the bottom of our frame here. And then we have two opportunities. We can either take that back to the back, or we can pull it around and bring it, follow it back to the front. Now, I'm sorry, a lot of this is just intuitive. And what I mean by that is you just have to have the vine in your hand, but just remember, the vine is always the boss. She's going to snap when she wants to snap, and she's going to be kind when she wants to be kind. But again, that's the beautiful lesson and the discipline of weaving, is learning how to go with the flow instead of fighting it. So I've decided with this wall pocket, sometimes we will leave it hollow on the top in the back, but I'm gonna fill it in a little bit because that's gonna create almost the look of like a little mini trellis. And I think that's kind of cool. Use the piece of vine that you saw me snap off with my hands before, which is still really long. I'm going to work on the back of my basket because I only have two places. I've been neglecting the back here. So I'm going to look at what's going on here. I need an opposing force here, and I need it to press down on this one. So I'm going to take that and lock it straight up into my frame. Yep. And when you push it in, make sure you push it in at least 1.5 inches so it actually is secure. Bringing it around like usual, back onto my frame and locking it in. Then I think I'm going to bring it back up again. Trellis design all the way up across here, all the way up across here, back in top, and again over and through, locking into the upper frame. Then I'm going to move back to the front again. So I got this piece here. I've got a piece pushing under, over, over. So I'm going to go under here. Now, as you're coming, the nice habit to have is to come around from the back, because then you're going to have a round shape. If you come in from the back, you're going to have a flat shape. So going through, oh, that's nice. I'm getting a lot of good strength through this area now, because if you look closely, under, over, under, under, over. So I've got 4 or 5 places of opposing resistance right now. So the reason, this is why they call it random weave, is you're just intuitively working your vine into the areas that need it, and you're trying to make the holes in your design smaller and smaller and smaller And at some point you have to make the choice of how intricate or how large you want those holes. At the garden centers, they actually preferred for thicker vine and larger holes, because what they did is they would line the basket from the inside with a thick sheet moss, and then they would put the plants and the flowers in the actual holes through the moss. Then they would fill it with soil. Then they would plant the top of the basket, and then that would all fill in. It would all fill in with your alyssums and your pansies, your petunias, and it would look really European, just this big bouquet of flowers. It's just, and that's also what I did on Mother's Day. I got a wholesale account, or I would grow them myself, or if you're really clever, I would actually go out into the woods and I would supplement with, if I found any kind of wild vinca vine growing, or violets, or things that I knew that would look and grow well in the basket, and I would use that as filler. Maybe ivy, a place where there's a bunch of ivy growing. So here's how we're going so far, right? So I'm gonna do just, we're already pushing 40 minutes. I'm gonna do one more piece, like filling in the back here, just to give you the principle one more time, and then I'm gonna finish this basket later. I would say at this point, it is easily 70% finished. I don't want my hole, probably will complete it when the holes are about 1.5 to 2 inches each hole. And I don't want it any more filled than that. So I'm gonna put one more strand of grapevine on it, and then I'm gonna put it against a solid wall so you could actually see what it looks like. Because it is tricky to see in this lighting, and I'm realizing now I probably should have used a solid background. But if people are favorable to this weaving, and I actually get some responses and some traffic, I will do a better video with a flat background and some lighting. But today, it's so beautiful out. I just needed to be out in the sun, honestly. We had a real blessing of rain finally, because we've been in a horrible drought, and we have been living in the fear of wildfires constantly. And I also want to tell you, because some people are like, oh, just tell us about the good stuff, just teach us how to grow stuff and don't get political. Well, I wish I had that luxury, but too many things are coming at us for us to be avoidant, and I don't want to create avoidant entertainment. So that being said, I was driving up the road the other day, and see, that's the difference. There's earth people, and then there's the majority of people. The majority of people don't realize that they are earth people, that they can't get by without the natural components and the perfect design that this planet was made in. But they don't see the things that the people that grow things and the people that are connected to the earth see. And a couple weeks ago, which was December, I was driving up the street, and there was a pink magnolia in full bloom. I also had paper whites, which is, like a kind of daffodil, in full bloom, and some other things that aren't supposed to come alive or do their thing until March, flowering and coming up. Now, the majority of people that drove by that magnolia tree to their modern homes and modern lives, just, if they noticed at all, just went, oh, isn't that pretty? Actually, no, it's not pretty. It's horrific. It's horrific because it's blooming several months before it should. So I'm not going to tell anyone what to do, but the earth is not whispering. She is screaming. She is screaming. Screaming, but people don't realize a scream isn't always violent. A scream sometimes, especially with nature, is a flower. Did you know, like, the reason that things flower at the garden centers in the little pots and containers is because of stress? You know, plant has incredible intelligence, and because they don't have the ability to move, they have to create mechanisms of survival. So when a plant feels stressed, its roots have filled into that container, and it goes, oh, I can't grow anymore. Oh, I have to survive. I better make seeds, because that's how I will survive. I'm going to send my DNA through seeds and propel it. And that's why when you don't get stuff out of the container soon enough and it gets too small, or gets root bound, things will flower prematurely. So sometimes in nature, like right now, when things are flowering at the wrong times, it is a sign of stress. And it's a sign of, yes, climate change. And what's wrong with things blooming early like that? Well, as you know, if the fruit trees do it too early and then we get a freeze, then we have no produce. And there are cycles of life that have gone on for hundreds and thousands of years. That food is there at a certain time, and that's when the birds and animals and insects reproduce. And if we change that overnight, which has happened, that's what creates collapse, environmental collapse. Okay, let's see the basket. Dun, 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 dun. That's where we're at right now. Pretty handsome, right? You can see nice deep pocket in the front, sitting pretty flat. See it from the side. And that, my friends, is Grapevine / random weaving 101. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you're enjoying your life. If you like my quick money-saving tips, rants, raves, and occasional magic, please subscribe. It helps. And take care of each other. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other, because I believe how we treat each other on the streets is our ultimate reality. And you know, sometimes just take control. Be divergent. And what I mean by this, you know, when I was a kid, I was like a punk rocker, and everyone thought I was just trying to get attention, but I wasn't trying to get attention. That's who I was. I was an individual, and I rebelled in different ways. I didn't want to hurt my body. I never smoked. I was moderate with my partying and drug use after a certain age, because I was fortunate not to have the addictive gene. But the other day, people just started throwing trash, you know, like little by little, on the beautiful road that comes up to my house through the mountains. And here's the thing. The common sense thing is, if it's your land, you should go out and clean it up. But people are so self-involved right now, and they don't understand the way that monkeys work. The way the human brain works is they see trash out there or graffiti out there, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to pick it up. I'll just throw more trash on top of that because he threw that trash there. And that is sheeple mentality. That's what's going to bring us down. So what did I do the other day? Took my basket, took my trash can, took my trash bag, and went for a nice long walk. And I picked up every piece of trash, every bottle, everything, as far as I could walk. I cleansed the entire thing. Instead of just complaining about it, instead of just being disgusted about it, I took control. And so now when people drive through there, it's not an invitation for a dump ground. And I'm not saying what I did is going to stop it, but it definitely neutralized it. So if you don't like something, change it. Don't just complain about it. Bye.